Welcome to Raw Politique. 2 weeks ago, the United States and Israel launched an illegal war on Iran. Since then, over 2,000 people have been killed, 3 million displaced, a school full of girls bombed. What we are witnessing now is not a new war. It is the same genocidal campaign that destroyed Gaza, now extending to Iran and Lebanon. The same bombs, the same impunity, and the same silence from the same governments.
Every Patriot missile that is being fired against a cheap drone from Iran costs $1.8 million. Somebody, that money goes into somebody's bank account. When you and I are appalled by the massacre of the school children, of the girls in Iran, okay? Now, that Tomahawk missile was 2.1 million. Somebody pocketed 2.1 million, and that somebody doesn't give a damn about the girls that were killed.
Economist, political leader, and founder of DiEM25, Yanis Varoufakis. Yanis, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for having me.
I'd like to start with something you've been saying, and many have been saying, which is this war is continuity. It's an extension of US imperialism that we've seen on steroids from Venezuela to Cuba to Greenland, but also an extension of the Zionist expansionist project in the region. This war didn't happen in a vacuum. Tell us your opinion.
You just choose the point in time when you want to start taking account of this permanent crime against logic and humanity, and you can find the thread. In your intro, you very accurately said that this is Gaza being taken to a larger canvas. So what they did in Khan Yunis, what they did in Rafah, they are now doing in Isfahan, they're doing it in Tehran. So there is this continuity, of course, and the fact that the United States, for the first time in history, is explicitly combining its military assault with Israel, adds strength to that argument, to the continuity between Gaza and Iran. But Mary, if have we forgotten what the United States did when they invaded Iraq? I mean, a million dead. For what? For bringing democracy to Iraq? No. For grabbing the petroleum industry of Iraq, giving it to Halliburton, to George W. Bush's mates and Dick Cheney mates. Before that, the war in Vietnam. But there is an element which I think is really very crucial for us, especially those of us who are in the West, in the global North, to retain in our minds white settler colonialism. So, sure, what's happening in Iran is, if you want, a continuation of the Nakba from 1948 onwards. But the Nakba began with a slogan, and the slogan was, a land without a people for a people without a land. Mm-hmm. Now, that is the original logic of European colonialism. When the British arrived in the coasts of what is today New South Wales, in South East Australia, they looked at the beautiful land and they decided they wanted it. So they declared it terra nullius, a land without a people. Yeah. For the people without a land. The convicts that arrived and the officers of the Royal Navy. And, there were 5 million Aborigines there who had immediately been cast aside for genocide. Because if you say these are not people, this is a land without a people, then that's the first step toward genocide. That's not at all different to the Zionist enterprise in Israel. And if you think about it, the way in which the West has been bombarding Iraq, Libya, Syria, Gaza, now Iran, with total impunity, the hidden message that is going out to the public, the demos of the West is, well, don't worry about that. They're not really people. They're human animals. Remember the depiction? So you choose the moment in history.
Sure.
5 years ago, 1 year ago, 75 years ago in Palestine, 500 years ago, and you find the common thread, this sense of continuity with what's happening in Iran, in Gaza, in southern Lebanon now.
But I want to turn to the whole corporations, AI aspect of this and how AI has intertwined with war and how corporates have intertwined with war. So just as a personal story, one of my children plays basketball at this business industrial park near our house. And then yesterday we've received alerts that, Microsoft is a potential target and Microsoft is in that area. Likewise, the Amazon offices are right near our family business. So, all the moms are thinking, where are we sending our kids? What are the potential targets in terms of Oracle, the Amazons, the Microsofts, and so on. But I think it's really interesting that Iran is looking at the whole infrastructure that's propelling this genocidal war forward. I'd love you to speak to this dimension because I think it's a new one and I think it's something that people should know about.
One of the first targets of the Iranians, once the bombs started dropping on them, were the data centers of AWS, Amazon Web Services in Bahrain and in Dubai in Saudi Arabia. It is really interesting that the Iranians worked out that these data centers run by Amazon were hosting Anthropic's AI programs. Anthropic is a separate company which is running its AI programs on Amazon servers in that area. And Anthropic's program, Claude, that many people have and use in their own homes, was tailor-made to help Israel and the United States choose targets in Iran. And it is fascinating that firstly, the Iranians knew that, and secondly, that they knew which data centers to take out in Bahrain and in the region in order to effectively to stop Claude from functioning for a few hours, for a few, maybe days. And that they did take them out. So we have, as you're saying, we've moved to a different form of warfare now. I refer to the state of the world that we find ourselves in, following the development of a new form of capital, which I call cloud capital. I call it techno-feudalism. It's a kind of feudalism where the lords are not the ones who own the land, but that they are the ones who own the cloud. And, we have a situation now, Mary, where for the first time in human history, it's not just arms dealers that get rich by selling weapons and missiles and bombs and ammunition to the imperialists, to those who unleash those weapons of destruction upon people. Now we have a situation where the children, the older women, the middle-aged men who are running around in Iran or indeed in Gaza, and they're running around because bombs are falling on them and they're trying to take cover. By moving around with their phones in their pockets, they're generating a lot of data that these companies can correlate. They can correlate the way in which people move and what it is that they say and what it is that they do, which they can monitor from their phones and the movement of their phones. They can correlate that with the bombs and with everything else that's happening. And that is a training data set that companies like Aduril or Palantir in particular are using in order to train their AI and then sell that AI to the example that I have in mind, because I have looked at it very, very recently, Palantir sold the British National Health Service, the public Medicare, the public health service in Britain that was set up by a Labour government, which is supported by all sorts of progressives, including myself in Britain. They sold through the Tony Blair Institute to the National Health Service a program, AI program, which helps hospitals in Birmingham, in Manchester, in Glasgow, and so on, to respond to emergencies, to the moments of panic when too many, patients arrive at once, amongst nurses and doctors. That program, which sold for £1 billion sterling, was developed by Palantir. So if you bring all this together, the AI machines that select targets, the Iranians in Iran, the Iranians that strike the data centers where these malignant programs are being run, the manner in which the victims of bombardment inadvertently and unwittingly help train the AI that these companies then sell for civilian use to the nicest possible public institutions like the British National Health Service. If you bring this all into one, kind of system, you realize that, what we used to have once upon a time, until very recently, which was a bifurcation, a demarcation between the military sector and the civilian sector. But that demarcation no longer exists. So it's all one thing. And it is all being drawn into a genocidal mindset.
It's terrifying, honestly. I just want to go on a tangent just for a moment, because I often say that it's the daily choices we make as people that determine whether we live within a liberation decolonized framework or whether we don't. So I'm just wondering, I was chatting with ChatGPT and Claude yesterday just to ask them about their complicity, in this. So I was asking, it's funny, I was asking, how can I, as a regular person, use AI in an ethical way, in the same way I screen our investments so that we are not complicit in genocide? So how do regular people, Yanis, relate to, interact with technology, AI, in a way that we're not feeding into this genocidal machine?
You can't. You just can't. Because these are very clever machines, well, actually very stupid machines, but they simulate smartness. And whatever data you give them, it simply makes them smarter, but their simulated intelligence is being weaponized by their owners in a way which is functional to the interests of their owners, not yours. So let me be very clear, Mary. The only thing we can do, there's nothing we can do personally, individually. Yet again, that's why we need politics, because none of us individually can make change through autonomous action. What we can do is we can make political change by getting together and by effectively taking over what we leftists used to refer to, the means of production, communication, exchange, but now we have also the means of communication. Unless we change the ownership structure. Who owns those programs? The AI machines. Ownership is everything. Use is nothing. Therefore, our task to contribute more to democratic politics so that we can actually take over the legislatures and all the institutions which in the end decide who owns what, who has property rights over what. Then there's nothing we can do on a personal basis except caress our conscience.
No, of course. Of course, it's about the collective. And I guess those individual choices feed into collective choices. But I think sometimes people need guidance. People are asking me, what AI tools should I use? And I'm thinking, nothing right now. There doesn't seem to be anything out there. But let's really go deeper on this point about political mobilization. And let's turn to Europe, because I think, that's where you're based. That's where your work has been. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing, complete European complicity, weakness, impotence. We have Keir Starmer, who we've spoken about on the show, continuing to be a disgrace in his puppy dog fashion. We have France that's opened its bases for this war. Germany has called dirty work done for all of us. Spain has refused. And I know you have, you've spoken about the issue of the Spanish prime minister not standing with the trade union. So I know that. But let's just talk about, what can European citizens do, people watching this show, actually to hold their governments accountable for this war?
Organize and overthrow them. There's nothing else we can do with them. No one can reason with Macron, with Merz, with Meloni, with Keir Starmer, because these people are there in order to serve these particular interests, in order to be complicit with the genocide in Palestine, in order to kick and scream, supposedly, when Trump bombs Iran, but at the same time to make sure that Trump continues to have access to their military bases so that they do continue to bomb Iran. Now, I know it sounds really preposterously difficult, but there's no alternative. We need to take over government. Mm-hmm. And that, I'm 65 now, and I really dislike electoral politics, Mary. This is, a confession, a personal confession. I really loathe it. Going out there and asking people, vote for us. I lose the will to live doing that. But there's no alternative. This is why, I'm still in politics, in electoral politics. If we keep electing the same people, we're going to get the same result. Because these people are there as, agents of principles. The principles being Palantir, Lockheed Martin, the fossil fuel industry. There's a very powerful cartel that makes huge quantities of money from all that. Because, as my friend Julian Assange once said, the reason why the United States invaded Afghanistan, Iraq, the reason why they're invading Iran, I'm not talking about the reason that George W. Bush had or Donald Trump has, but the raison d'etre, the whole logic of the machinery that is now bombing Iran is got nothing to do with victory or democracy or anything like that. It's all about making huge quantities of money. Every Patriot missile that is being fired against a cheap drone from Iran costs $1.8 million. Somebody, that money goes into somebody's bank account. When you and I are appalled by the massacre of the school children, of the girls in Iran, okay? Now, that Tomahawk missile was 2.1 million. Somebody pocketed 2.1 million, and that somebody doesn't give a damn about the girls that were killed. That's what we have to remember. Our governments are in the pocket of those people. Their political campaigns were financed by them. They are answerable to them. So we need to overthrow them. Now, it sounds like a huge deal, but remember what Hannah Arendt once said, that every revolution, every rebellion looks impossible before it happens and inevitable after it happened. So let's make it inevitable.
Do you think this war would be a further impetus for people to organize with more agency?
Yes, it is. It's already...
An urgency, rather. That's what I mean. You'd think with a threat of nuclear war and, people on the brink, that people would be on the streets organizing. Are you optimistic?
Well, you see, people being on the streets hasn't always worked. Remember in 2003, before the invasion of Iraq by George W., we managed to bring out millions in the streets. I mean, never before have so many people mobilized. And what happened? The powers that be ignored us. So again, in 2011, we managed to bring almost 1 million people out on the streets of Athens. That didn't work. It was good. We felt great. It was a fantastic moment for that feeling of solidarity and togetherness. But I think that to be pragmatic and to be effective and to change things and to stop people from getting killed, very basic ethical objectives. We need to do a lot more than bring people on the streets. I think that in the last 2 years, people were very tired from the constant demonstrations for Palestine that we were all participating in as we had to, as we had the moral duty to. But in the end, nothing happened. The genocide is continuing as we speak. So people got tired of being out on the streets. But the good news is that I now sense that progressives, anti-imperialists are coalescing with greater urgency, to use your word, politically, in terms of organizations, in terms of actually making change where it matters, in elections, in trade unions, in local governments. I mean, it's one small step in a marathon, but I think that has already been taken.
Okay, that's good. That's great to know. Yanis, is there anything you would like to add before we close?
Well, my message to everyone is that once upon a time, when we used to say that, if Palestine is not free, we are not free,
right,
that sounded like a slogan. Today, it feels like a very powerful, evident reality. It is now clear that the AI programs that are being trained in Palestine are part of the surveillance systems of our police. They are part of the surveillance systems of the companies that employ us. They are part of our national health services. So, never before has it been truer and more convincing that unless Palestine is free, no one is free.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yanis, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much, Mary.